This story includes a lot of paranoia, and it may be a long shot, but here we go. My family and I lived in a nice house in a relatively friendly town from the time I was 6 until I was 11. This town is generally safe, other than the time some guy tried to lure my sister into his car. From the day we moved in, the neighbours across the street hated my family. We were never quite sure why, but we figured it was because their mum had accidentally parked on their side of the street the first time we visited the house. Regardless, we embarked on a 5-year battle with them that continued back and forth until the day we inevitably moved out. But the story comes from the strange and somewhat creepy, unexplainable things that occurred while we lived across the street from them. The father of the neighbour's household, was in his mid-40s. He was bald and gave off a creepy vibe. He would often stare at his teenage daughter or my mum. For the sake of the story, we'll call him Joe. Joe's father was important in the township for some reason. This meant that Joe pretty much thought he ran my street, and basically anything within a 2-mile radius of his house. So he did whatever he pleased. This included taking my mum's parking spot, cursing and yelling at her, staring at us, and giving us all dirty looks. He accused us of messing with his cars after we'd lived there for 2 years, but we ignored it. Of course we hadn't touched his vehicle, but he was willing to do anything to make us move out. About 1.5 years before we eventually did leave the street, things took a turn in our little feud. My mum was the type of person to take things as a joke, so she would constantly make fun of his accusations and insults until he put up cameras. He claimed to the cops in our area that the cameras were to prove that we were, in fact, messing with the cars. The only issue with this story was the cameras didn't even face our vehicles. They faced our house, all the way across the street. This meant that none of his cars were even in the frame, and to make matters worse, one camera was pointed directly at my window. I was only 10 at the time, so from the point on, my mum made me keep my shades down and the curtains closed. Other neighbours in the town told us that they had gone into his house and seen the video footage, which really did point straight towards my window. I still get the chills thinking about it. As if the cameras weren't bad enough, there were various points in my basement which would be broken into and holes would be drilled into the pipes. We had doors outside that led to our basement stairs, and no matter what or how much we locked them, the drilling didn't stop. We eventually had to nail wooden boards to the entrance. A few months before we moved, my mum had come home from the store late one night to see someone jump from the fence that separated us from our houses from the street. The guy just stayed in his car and stared at her. To this day, my mum is convinced that all of these things were just tricks Joe was pulling to get us to leave. Well, they were. So Joe, let's not meet again. Because quite frankly, you're creepy, even if you didn't hire people to break into my house and basement. When I was about 7 years old, in 2007, I was very close to being abducted. I remember it vividly, and I'm still terrified of what happened. I live in a 2-story house in a safe neighbourhood. My mother and I were the only ones in the home at the time. My mother was taking a bath upstairs while I watched Nickelodeon downstairs alone in the living room. The way my house is set up is that anyone could see the living room through the front door, even if it's shut. I remember hearing a knock on the door. I couldn't ignore it, since whoever was at the door could see me and knew that someone was home. My mum usually would hide in the kitchen until the person knocking went away, and it was too late for me to run into the kitchen, since he could see me. I remember feeling guilty since my mum has always warned me to never open the door to strangers. I got the key and unlocked the door. A man in his early 30s or late 20s was wearing work clothes with a green tie. He asked me if I knew where my neighbour was and that he needed to see him. I also noticed the guy was looking around the inside of my house while he waited for me to answer. I asked him which neighbour he was talking about, and then he said that he was older and lived somewhere near here. He didn't give me a name, and was vague as possible. I felt bad because I didn't know who he was and who he was talking about, since I lived in a neighbourhood with primarily older couples. I told him that I couldn't help him, but then he insisted that I help him search the neighbourhood for my neighbour. I declined, and the guy kept asking me. I told him once more, and then the guy grabbed my arm and started to pull me out of my house. I grabbed the door frame and called for my mum. The man let go of my arm and started to casually walk back to his car. I'm pretty sure that it was a beige Civic, but I'm not too sure. It honestly scares me the most that he didn't bolt off and speed off. He was just too calm. I just stood there and watched him drive away as if nothing bad had happened. I didn't tell my mum about this incident until I was about 15, and she flipped her shit. I regret not telling her sooner, but there was no telling what this guy has done after trying to kidnap me. To this day, I still panic when I hear someone knock on the front door. So, man with a green tie, let's never meet again. 2 nights ago, while walking to my car, an older gentleman named Jeff asked me if I had a cigarette. I politely said no. He continued to talk out loud to himself whilst walking away. During which time he said, "I've gotten away with murder in Chicago." We get in the car, and 3 blocks later, we stop at a light, and he's there, leaning against the pole, smoking a cigarette. Fairly certain he's a time traveller. No way he could have gotten that far faster than us in a car. We stop at the light, and he points directly at me, and then does the slice in your throat movement with his thumb. He had a straight, angry face. We drove away thinking, did that guy just threaten my life because I didn't have a cigarette? At that point, I was thinking, this is kind of creepy, but funny at the same time. Fast forward to last night. 2 friends and I were downtown, sitting outside a brewery, talking about what had happened. All of a sudden, the same guy comes up, walking to our table, from out of nowhere. He walks right past us. We get up to go inside, and he makes a U-turn and walks directly by me. We think, okay, that's weird, but there's no way he remembers us from last night, right? We go to the back and play some foosball. A little over an hour later, we go to leave, and he's still right outside the door, waiting for us to leave, looking at himself in the window, pumping himself up like Rocky before a fight. At that moment, it wasn't really funny anymore, and for the next 30 minutes, we just sat there, seeing what he would do, and he just stayed there, waiting for us to walk out. A few times, we thought he'd left, but he had actually just walked down the street to the entrance of the building my office is at. At 11:55 p.m., he finally walked away and walked to my car. And we walked to my car. My friend said he was down the street, so we were fine. Only to find that when we got to my car, he was standing right by it. Again, time traveller. We got into the car, and almost immediately, a cop car pulled him over. We couldn't make out what they were saying, but it's fairly obvious something is wrong with this man. Either drugs or an extreme mental disability. Regardless, the cops let him go and he walked away. What started out as a joke, kind of funny scenario, ended up being kind of creepy and weird.